Hello and welcome to another exciting Blender tutorial. Today we're going to take a look at Blender's inbuilt editing software. Let's get started. All right, so here we are in Blender, fresh instance of Blender, and I'm going to set up the editing workflow. Now, you can go up here to the top. I don't know if you've ever used these little tabs. These are basically just different layouts that are pre-made. So it's a good way of just kind of quickly going to a different layout. If you've got something, you can make your own. And there's some here that aren't loaded. So you can click this little drop down, and there's one for video editing. We could do that, but I'm going to do this manually so you can see kind of what's actually going on under the hood. So I'm going to bring my timeline up. And the best way to do the editing workflow, I think, is to use two main windows. Okay. So we're going to switch from the 3D viewport right up here. We're going to come to the top corner, click the little drop down, and we're going to switch over to the video sequencer. And we've got basically just a big timeline here. And we're going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to grab another video sequencer. There you are. All right, so we've got two video sequencers. Now with this first one, just like in the dope sheet, there's this little drop down where you can have different modes. And we're going to switch this one to the preview mode. This will show us a playback of what's in our timeline. And we'll keep this one set to sequencer. So that's kind of the basic setup. Now, there's a couple of things I like to do. I like to turn off show seconds. I just like to see frames because that seems to be how I think. Now, the other thing that is helpful that you really need to do is I like to come up here into the side view here. And let's see, we'll come to view. And under view settings, I like to tick prefetch frames. Now, what this is going to do is this is going to collect frames in advance so that you get faster playback. You can also change this proxy render to different percents to speed that up. So I'll show you what I mean in a second, but prefetching frames, that's a good thing. Now, bear in mind, you get a different side panel depending on which of these views you have. So this one down here, if I hit in, has got different options like proxy and cache and tool and all that stuff, whereas this one just has tool view and metadata. So that's really important to remember. If you're looking for something, it might be because you've got the wrong view up. Likewise, there's a sequencer preview view that shows you both. So it's basically a very simple video editing software. There's not a lot of detail and a lot of functionality here. So I don't recommend like doing a lot of editing in Blender at the moment until they really work to improve this system. But in terms of just getting in quickly and playing around with your footage, sometimes it's a really good option, especially because you can bring in scenes to edit those if you've got other scenes in your Blender files. So that can be really powerful, but I'll show you the basics. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in, I'm going to go Shift A, and this allows me to import something. And I'm going to import an image sequence because that's what I've rendered out. So here's my first image sequence. And I'm just going to click on the first image, and I'm going to scrub all the way down to the bottom, Shift, and select the top one. So I've selected all these images. And because they've got this sequential numbering, when I click Add Image Strip, it'll import it, and it's playing back. Now, bear in mind, Blender is sourcing each of these image files for every frame, and each one's about 5 megs in size, so they're quite big, and that's going to slow things down a lot. So that's where this prefetch is really useful. Now, one thing that I also like to do is come over here to View and turn on the cache. We click on Show Cache, and then come back to it, and you pick which cache to see. And I just tick Final Images, and you see I get this orange bar that's like filling up down here at the bottom. This is showing me how many frames have been prefetched. So I've got all these frames right now stored in memory, so I can just hit playback and I'll get real-time playback. You can see it moves, so it dumps them and it starts to, dumps them from behind and starts to load new frames in. And the idea is basically as you're hitting play, you can watch this bar, slide around. And as long as your playhead is always within that bar, you're going to get real-time playback. But if you get outside of it and you hit play, it's going to start to chug. You'll start losing frames. So just bear that in mind. That's kind of how you use that. So, all right. You've noticed I've added these work signs. I've created these little like work sign things just real quick the other day. I was just messing around, just trying out an idea. And I want to try and bring in a little more narrative cohesion to the story. I feel like things were a little bit disparate and wasn't really working very well. So I've come up with this idea. See what you think. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. But the idea is basically I'm going to have this like work signal that's going off like, all robots report to your duties, report to stations, something. And these little guys are heading off to work, right? And that's how our short film's going to start. And that's when we know this guy is like not wanting to go to work. Basically, he wants to just take a break, right? Because he's exhausted. So let me go ahead and extend out my timeline. Now you can see I don't have any, start and end controls here. So it's good to just create one other one. Let's see, let's do it down here. I'll just come up and I'll grab the timeline. I'll just keep this down here, and I'll just use this so we can extend our start and end time. Now let's bring in the next part. So I'm just going to come here to the end. We'll watch this in a second. So what I do typically when I'm working on a short is first as I render stuff out and I start to finish off my scenes, even though I've thought things through really clearly and I've had a good plan with storyboards and whatnot, it's still a good idea to have a look at everything in its final form, especially in Blender where we're working with Eevee and we've got so much flexibility. We can render easily and quickly. So I just check for errors or problems or things that aren't quite working right and try and think of what do I need to improve to help bring the film, to an even better place. Now I'm going to change my proxy render down to 25. It's going to make things a bit chunky, but that's fine. But that'll give me a really long stretch. Now you can also expand how much bar you get. You may not have a lot of RAM, so the bar may not be very long for you. You can always come up here to Preferences, and we can go to System. And down here under Video Sequencer, you've got this memory cache limit. So this is where you can set, how much memory it can use for this. But also you can turn on disk cache. So if you've got like an SSD or something handy and you've got a lot of free space on that, you can use a disk cache and that will give you even more freedom. So, but this should be fine for us for right now. So, all right. I'm just going to hit backspace on the keyboard. Backspace is a hotkey that will get rid of gaps. So if you have any gaps in front of your timeline, you hit backspace, it'll close those. So for example, if I grab this by clicking on it in the middle of the strip and hitting G to grab, and I come over here so that my playhead is somewhere in this space right here. And even though the strip's selected, right? If it's somewhere here, if I hit backspace, it's not going to delete that strip. It's just going to remove the gap in between. So, however, if I'm in front of it and I hit backspace, it's not going to do it. So that's a little gotcha. All right, so let's have a look at the film. We'll come back and we'll see how far our playback handles it. I'll just let this fully cache and then we will hit play. Okay, there's our maximum cache. We got the signs. Droids report to work. Report to work. Fades off. Hides. Shut down. The doors. Sets it down. Notices the discarded. Yeah, cool. All right. So just a note, a couple of things. This is all feeling all right. The work thing might be a little heavy-handed, but it's kind of fits the tone that I'm going for, so I think I'm going to keep it. I like it. It also makes it really clear what's going on. This is all great. He drops, boom, it's fine. Now, this shot, obviously, is a problem. We can't even see him, so I need to tweak the lighting here in this shot to get him to really show up. I need to find a way to get him to pop so it's clear that he's the focus and the focal point of this shot. So that's going to be a little tricky with all the haze and bloom and stuff. So we may have to come up with a trick to do that. Also felt like he could fall a lot longer. This feels like a really long distance, and I feel like it's just sort of like bop, 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 done. So I think what I want to experiment with is maybe extending this. So let's take this shot. I'm going to come here, just go forward a little bit using my left and right keyboard arrows. Let me turn on screencast keys. Can I get that in? Let's see. Viewport, screencast keys. Just move off to the side here. And let's see, is that gonna? No, it's not gonna give it to me, is it? Oh, there it is. All right, that's your screen keys up there. That's what I'm hitting. Great. All right, so I'm gonna use page up to move to the different cuts there, and I'm gonna come forward a little bit, find the beginning of this shot. So maybe not all the way there. I might just start right here where we really got momentum. I'm gonna hit K on my keyboard. Actually, click the strip, hit K. That's a cut. Creates a cut. I'm gonna go forward. I'll keep all this. Boom, 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 boom. And I want to make sure I've got a lot of momentum still, so I might cut there. So I've got this little bit, and I'm going to click this strip and hit G to grab. Now bear in mind when you click strips, if you click the end of it, see how that's highlighted? Now if I hit G to grab, it's actually going to extend the start frame of that strip. So bear that in mind. You don't want to click the ends, you want to click the whole thing right in the middle somewhere. It's especially hard on shots like this because they're so small, so you might accidentally just click there and then extend the shot. So anyways, so I've got this bit, I'm going to copy that with Control C and then Control V to paste. Now I'm going to overlap here and see how it turns red. When I let go, it actually pops it so it doesn't overlap anymore. That's quite handy to like get stuff to be lined up perfectly. So we're just playing the same thing twice. I might make this one a little different by zooming it in. So I'm going to hit in to bring up my side panel, and I'm going to go to transform, and I'll take the scale up on this particular shot, and I might just move it over a little bit and maybe like this. And then I'm going to do some crop as well on it, just so that it matches, vaguely matches. This is just for us to reference. It's not really, this doesn't have to be exact. It's mostly so it doesn't look weird when it cuts to full frame. So yeah, that'll extend that beat a bit, right? Let's let it cache first. Yeah, that definitely helps. I feel like we could probably go with one more. I might copy this, paste, grab it back, and then let's come over here and let's push this one even further. These you know, scale transforms are going to help make the shots feel different and also more intense, the kind of progressively pushing in. Now, the next thing I'm feeling is like I don't have enough of a beat here where he stops, right? He hits the ground and we need to kind of a breath here because it's quite intense. You got to think about that. Like, what's the flow of your scene? What's the, the intensity, the slowdown? Like, you need to have some ebb and flow to things. So I'm going to come down to here, and right here, I actually kind of want to extend this moment a bit. So what I'll do is I'll come to the last frame here, and I'll hit K, and then I'll grab this to create some space, and then I'll come back a frame, and then I'm going to click on this guy, and we're going to go up here to strip, retiming, and I'm going to add freeze frame and slide. So click that. Now as I slide my mouse, I get this freeze frame. If you notice the direction of action, this whole scene is left to right. So he's moving this way, right? And then when he turns around to run, he's moving the other way. So he's going right to left. I mean, I hear he's kind of going directly away from us, but you can see there's a general slight touch of going to the left, right? And you hear like he's facing to the left. So you get a sense of like where things are. There's also like the blue lights on the left of things. And so there's a sense of like, okay, where the exit is and where the conveyor belt is, where the smasher is, right? But when we get over to here, we have this shot right here, right? Where he jumps in the screen direction that we've established, right? But then this guy comes up and he comes up on the other side. And now he's looking at him. And we establish, this is a really important thing. So we've established a new line here. And now when I cut back, he's looking a little bit to the right. That's dead down. It's a bit hard to see on that one, but this one you can definitely see that this thing is on the right and he's on the left of frame. So we've switched the side of the line that we've broken the line, right? And usually that's a bad idea because it can be really disorienting, but the effect of it in this is actually kind of nice. And it works because we're able to see that transition and we still are oriented, right? Because we know this is the goal and it's still in the center of our shot, right? It's still right here. So this whole action sets us up. Now suddenly we're traveling this way and our camera's on the other side of the line. And now it makes sense that, you think of him as going towards the light here. You don't think about the fact that he's now going the opposite direction, right? At least I hope you don't. You shouldn't. I didn't notice it, at least. But anyway, it's just a cool fun fact. You can break the line sometimes, and that's an example of how to do it. Now, this bit here feels a bit too slow to me, so I'm going to add a retime here. Yeah, from like this point. So what I'm going to do is come up here to strip again. We're going to go back to retime, and I'm going to add a retiming key. Retiming keys are cool. They're like these little keys. At first they're grayed out. You can't select them, but I'll go strip, retime, and toggle retiming keys, Control R. So if I hit Control R, suddenly you can see the keys aren't grayed out. They're active. And now what I can do is I can grab one of these guys by just clicking on it, hit G, and slide it out. And you can see it slows down. So now it's slowed down by 71%. But I can also speed things up. I can bring this in like that. See how that feels. Yeah, so that's just got much more momentum. And this kind of thing is fine. Like, I don't feel like I need to go re-render this shot. I don't need to go back and like do this in animation. I'm happy to let this be what it's like in the edit. And that's a really good, time saving thing. So I'm gonna hit Control R to deactivate those. That's so you don't accidentally grab them. And I might even call this scene edit so that I've got that. Now you're not familiar with the scene drop down button. You click this and you get all the different scenes in your Blender file. So I can click here and create new to create a new scene. And now I've got another scene. And what's cool about this is that you can bring them in. So I can come here now and I could extend my timeline. And I go Shift A, and instead of bringing an image sequence or a movie, I can go up to scene, and there's my new scene. So I might call that new scene. Let's call this SCO3 underscore hallway. This is our final scene. Can't believe we're here. Back to the edit, Shift A, scene. There it is. You can see I can drop it in. And now I've got an actual scene in my Blender file, my edit, which I can jump into. So I can go over to this. Now, this is really useful. Okay, so let's rename this, right? Let's call this layout tab. Let's call this edit. Okay, this is our edit tab. I might get rid of these other ones. I'll just right click delete just to simplify things for myself. So this is my edit layout, and then I'm going to click plus and I'm going to create a general layout. And this one I'll use for scene 3. So you can see it says empty scene, there's nothing in it. When you want to switch over to the other scene, let's say we actually want to start working on this scene 03 hallway scene, right? If I click on this, I don't want to have my edit layout up, right? It's kind of annoying. So I'm going to come over here and switch to my 3D viewport, let's say, and make this my timeline and whatever. And let's say I start working in this scene, but then I want to go back to the edit and check it out. So I come up here and I switch to my edit. You can see that the layout stays the same. So my window layout has stayed the same, which is annoying because then you got to come back up here and change it again. And if you're going back and forth a lot, you're really quickly like having to redo these window layouts like constantly. And so the better way to do it, you can see up here, I've gotten rid of all my strips. You can right click and delete any strip you don't want from your window layout tabs up here at the top. And I've made this one called edit. I've renamed it by just double clicking on it and calling it edit. Okay, and so this is going to be my window layout for whenever I'm working on my edit scene. Okay, so I'm going to pin this scene to this layout. So I'm going to click the little pin icon. So this scene that's active right now, the edit scene, is pinned to this tab. Okay, so think about this is referring to the tabs. Okay, so I pinned it to that tab. So if I click on the other tab, the layout tab, it's going to take me out of that view. I'm still in the scene, right? But you see the pin is turned off, right? This part's a little confusing, but bear with me. Because it's no longer pinned now, if I switch my scene to hallway and I start working, and then I want to go back and work on my edit, remember we pinned the edit scene to the edit tab window layout. So if I click on this, it'll bring me back to my edit. So that's the gist of it. You just want to click that little pin icon when you've got your edit set up, and then come up here and go to whatever scene you want to be in, and then you can just leave this alone from that point. And whenever you switch between these two tabs, it's going to take you between those two different places. Okay, I hope that makes sense. It's really useful, but super confusing. So anyways, so yeah, great. So now what we can do is we can start to figure out how this other scene needs to work. Now, naturally, doing this in boards is going to be the best idea. So I'm going to board this up and think through how I want the story to be told. So let's see, I'll create a camera and I'll jump into that camera view. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to go Shift A and we're going to create a grease pencil, blank grease pencil. Let's see, a plane, grab Y, rotate X 90, just scale this up, and this can be what we draw on. So back to grease pencil, back to draw mode. And then we're going to not draw on the origin, we're going to draw on the surface. As I switched it off of surface to 3D cursor, and I just shift right clicked to project the 3D cursor onto, turn screencast keys back on, onto that surface. And then what I did was I hid the plane. You turn on auto key, and it's just add and replace as the main set. So I just brought up a timeline, and that was it. Now you scrub to a new spot, and if you tap anywhere, it's going to delete everything. Perfect. All right, so we're gonna boom like that, and then let's take this bit over to here, like that, and then that means our door. Let's do this like a pan. Now let's see how that plays. So I'm gonna come up here to my edit. If I can get my tablet to work, and now you can see we've actually got that scene here showing up in our view. And it will be included in our cache. Yeah, cool. So I can feel like I can see how this is going to work. You know, it's probably a bit too long of a pause. So let me go back over here. Grab these guys and just move them in a bit. Nice. Moral of the story, sometimes you just got to get out. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you really enjoyed the tutorial and learned a few cool tips. Now, please check out the Patreon where you can get the full uncut version of this tutorial where you can see a lot of extra stuff. And I go into all the detail of planning out this next scene and drawing the storyboards and stuff, so check that out there. Or you can head over to YouTube and join up there at the All Access Pass level or higher and get access to it there. Plus, you can get project files and stuff on the Patreon, so go check it out. Thanks to everyone who supports the channel already over there and on YouTube here. Really appreciate all of you, and thanks to you for watching all the way to the end. Amazing! Really appreciate you. I'll catch you in the next tutorial. Until then, have a fantastic week. See ya.